Hello, it's me again, and I'd like to address this video to the game developers of the world. Assuming any developers actually watch this channel, that is. Otherwise, I guess I'm kinda just screaming into the void. Fair warning, this video is gonna be a lot of me talking. There's not gonna be a whole lot of gameplay highlights or anything like that. You have been warned. For anybody who doesn't know, last week, this tweet about the state of Warzone ended up going viral, and it sparked some interesting conversations between developers and the gaming community. So I thought I'd do a quick little video here and just address the game development community, at the very least the part of it that was upset by this, since believe it or not, I'm actually kinda knowledgeable in this area. I thought it'd be a fun change of pace compared to, my usual unhinged rants about stuff I'm completely uneducated about. Also, before we get started here, make sure you leave a like if you do enjoy the video, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And to any game developers who do happen to be watching this, just give me 5 minutes before you click away. I promise the whole video is not just dunking on you. So once again, just to set the stage for you guys, last week this tweet ended up going viral discussing the state of Warzone and ways it can or should be fixed. Now, I don't actually know very much about the person who tweeted this. From what I understand, it seems that they're not knowledgeable about game development, and most of their comments came from the perspective of somebody who just plays Call of Duty and Warzone and is trying to list ways they think that the game could be made better. And I'll be the first one to admit the tone of said tweet was probably not the most friendly. I mean, starting your tweet off with "Dear Warzone developers, you have absolutely no idea how to make your players happy" is probably not the best way to start a reasonable conversation. So naturally, the developer response to this, not from Infinity Ward or Activision or anything like that, just from game developers in general, was understandably miffed. And I do want to be the first person to say, developers, I get it. I really do. I understand how frustrating it is to have some, armchair creative who has absolutely no idea what goes into what you do tell you how to do your job. I've mentioned it before on the channel, but for those of you who are new, I'm a musician, and most of my professional experience has been as a working musician. And among working musicians, we have a term called jukeboxing. Jukeboxing is when somebody hires a musician to do a job, whether that job is a recording session, a party, a wedding, whatever, and then essentially tries to dictate to the musician what to play and how to play it, completely ignoring any and all feedback about why certain requests might be unreasonable or unrealistic. The conversation usually goes something like this.
Hey man, I know the performance is tomorrow, but do you think you guys could play the song in E instead of D? Our soprano's boyfriend is coming to the show and she really wants to make sure her high notes stand out.
Well, you're kind of putting me in a tough spot here. The music's already bought and printed, so we're gonna have to transcribe it by hand. That's gonna take a few hours, and then we'll have to relearn it all from scratch. It's probably gonna take at least another couple hours of rehearsal, and I mean, the show's tomorrow. I don't really know how realistic this is to get done.
I'm sure you guys will find a way. You always pull through. You guys are great. Anyway, hey, break a leg out there tomorrow.
This happens so often, you have absolutely no idea. Anyway, the point of the sideshow is that I get it, right? I understand that it can be absolutely frustrating when somebody who has absolutely no idea how to do your job just points at the TV and says, "Oh, that's easy, I could do that. How come you're not doing a better job?" Again, with absolutely no idea what goes into it. And I'd also like to clarify and say that I know that this happens all the time across the gaming community. A lot of gamers who are completely uninformed about what goes into making a game will sit and comment and say, "Why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? How come you devs are so lazy?" When the reality is you're doing your absolute best, it's just certain things aren't realistic. I understand that more than most. I've studied game development in school, and I definitely understand it's a lot more work than you expect. But all that being said, I do want to defend the Call of Duty community on a few counts here, and hopefully make those of you devs who aren't really ingrained in the Call of Duty community understand our frustration and why the tweet isn't all that unreasonable, and the general hostility of the game development community in response to this tweet really wasn't a great look. To go back to my story about jukeboxing for a second, the thing that makes jukeboxing so frustrating is not that it happens or that people have feedback about what we're playing and how they'd like us to play it. Obviously, they're the ones hiring us. They should be allowed to, have some kind of input, right? The thing that makes jukeboxing frustrating is that a lot of people will then ignore our feedback as to why certain requests are or are not, reasonable or realistic. And sure, in the case of game development, there are definitely developers out there that are very good about telling their community what they're working on, why they're working on it, and why certain things will or will not happen. Take a look at XDefiant. XDefiant's been getting a ton of praise for how it's been interacting with its community. The devs have been very open about, hey, here is a bug in the game. Here is why the bug is happening. Here's what we're doing to fix it, and here's why we're not fixing it faster. And in that instance, if anybody is still complaining about bugs or whatever in XDefiant, I would absolutely say, yeah, the devs would be completely within their rights to be pissed off about that. But the thing is, that's not what happens with Call of Duty. I said it before, the Call of Duty community comes off as ignorant, but that's only because we are ignorant. Nobody ever tells us what's going on or why. Nobody ever really tells us what's being worked on until after the updates have already been made. Nobody really tells us why certain updates are difficult to make, and the only people who do are not from Activision, so we're kind of getting anecdotal evidence here. So the reason that the players of Call of Duty are frustrated is because it seems like we're giving a lot of feedback, and that feedback is generally just being met with silence. There is no, hey, we're working on this and here's why it's taking so long, or hey, we know you guys really want to see this, but here's why we can't change it or fix it or whatever. Take the Warzone servers, for example. I understand because I've worked worked on these kinds of things, that is a much more complicated problem than it seems like. Oh, just get better servers is not the solution. I understand that. But the only reason I understand that is because I was literally taught it in school. There is no way for the average Call of Duty gamer to understand that that is not a reasonable request. There just isn't. And like I just said, there is no communication from Activision or Infinity Ward or whoever saying, hey, we know you really want the servers worked on, but here's why that's not going to happen in like the next 2 weeks. Again, we just don't know. Now you might be thinking, well, then just leave the devs alone. I mean, shouldn't you, not assume? I mean, as the old saying goes, to assume makes an ass fuck out of you. But the thing is, this isn't just oh, I'm reviewing a random piece of art or product I saw on the internet. This is something that people paid money for. Even Warzone, which is free to play, people still buy skins and battle passes and such. And the reason that they buy these things is because Call of Duty is a live service game. It is marketed as a product that is going to be updated and improved over time. Nobody purchased Modern Warfare 2 or downloaded Warzone with the assumption that that was going to be the final state of the game and it was never going to change. Everybody assumed that there would be gameplay updates, there would be iteration, there would be things in the base game that we weren't happy with, but they would be improved upon over time, especially since with Call of Duty Next, they promised supposedly unprecedented levels of post-launch support and all that stuff. So the other part of it is, we're asking for improvements to something that we paid for under the assumption that there would in fact be improvements, and we're not getting them, and we have absolutely no idea why. A great example is the Modern Warfare 2 maps. For the first 5 months of this game's life cycle, we did not get a single new map in the game. The only DLC we got for the first 2 seasons was Shipment and Shoot House, which are both returning maps, and then the museum map, which, yeah, it's new in that it's new to this game, but that map was in the beta and they didn't really change it or anything, so, what was the map team working on? And again, if they were working on something, that's one thing, right? But they need to tell us about it. They need to say, hey, here's a thing that we've been working on for a really long time. This is why you haven't been getting, the map support that you've been asking for. We're working on this really cool thing for you guys, and we hope you'll be a bit more patient with us. Or alternatively, even if they say, hey, we wanted to put out these cool maps for you guys, but we ran into some problems with development and things are going slow. The community might be frustrated by that, sure, but it's a whole lot better than just complete radio silence. Again, the crux of the frustration from the Call of Duty community is that we just don't know what's happening. We don't know what's happening, we don't know why, we don't know who is making these decisions, and even if it's not something as simple as content, let's just take a look at balance changes. Flash grenades are something the entire community complained about for months, and it took them what felt like forever to fix it. They were literally able to add an accessibility option to nerf the effect of flashes on your eyes before actually adjusting the strength of the flash grenades. And again, if there's some kind of complexity in this, we need to mathematically determine certain things with the perks or the way the flashes interact with the environment and all this shit, then that would be one thing, because again, on the surface, adjusting the strength of a flash grenade does not seem like it should be that difficult. But if it is, we need to know that, so we don't all go complaining on Twitter about why aren't the devs balancing the game or whatever, right? Anyway, I hope I'm kind of making sense here. I had a list of notes and I've sort of abandoned it. Anyway, to round this up, and I hope any devs that clicked on this video are still watching at this point, the frustration that comes from Call of Duty specifically is the fact that we paid for a product expecting, again, supposedly unprecedented levels of post-launch support for both Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone that we just haven't gotten, and we have no explanation as to why. And because Activision's community management strategy of choice is, generally speaking, radio silence, it seems, we gamers are forced to make assumptions, right? Even if those assumptions are completely off base and not rooted in reality in any way, shape, or form, I mean, we have to assume what's going on, right? Because we were promised a thing, that thing is not happening, and now here we are trying to figure it out. So I hope those of you out there in the game development community can be a little bit understanding with this situation in particular. I'm not saying game devs don't have a rough job, they absolutely do. You guys work unbelievably hard on these games, we know that, and a lot of you guys take unnecessary flack for things that generally speaking aren't even your fault. I understand that, I think the bulk of gamers understands that, and I would hope that after watching this video and listening to me, fucking rant on this topic for so long, maybe you guys will have a little bit of sympathy for us too. Because again, it's just that we really don't know what's happening. We would like to know what's happening, but we don't. And I did mention this on Twitter, but a way to correct this problem in almost every case is just to communicate better. If something went wrong with development, tell us. If you're seeing a lot of community members give feedback about the same thing, tell us why it is a certain way. Whether it was a creative decision to make something a certain way or balance something a certain way, or if it's a technical problem that's preventing you from fixing something faster, just tell us. Sure, there's always going to be that odd idiot out there that's just going to get mad for no reason and, expect you to use the power of God to fix your game tomorrow. But I would say that is the vast minority compared to the number of gamers who will be absolutely understanding if you just tell us what's going on. Anyway, I think that about covers everything I wanted to talk about. Hopefully that made sense, and hopefully any devs out there that did see this video, you don't feel like I was just sitting here dunking on you guys, because like I said, I do understand that your jobs are tough. I do understand that it can be frustrating seeing people that have no idea what it is you do sit and try and tell you how to do your job. Trust me, I get it better than most people. But at the same time, I do hope you guys can maybe see things from our perspective a little bit and maybe get why we're frustrated, especially when it comes to things like lack of communication. I know there are certain things you can't tell us, or like it's too complicated to explain over Twitter or something like that, but I promise if you guys just communicate a little bit more, it will do wonders for the relationships between developers and their community. And yeah, that's about it. As always, if you did enjoy this video, definitely make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you want to come back for more content. That's about it. I'll see you guys in the next one.